Hello, and welcome to Learn Family University's course, Student Wellbeing and Successful Online Learning. I'll be your presenter today. I'm Pamela Santerre, the coordinator of online learning for Learn. My contact information is on the screen. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. During this course, you will learn about the principles of well-being that parents and experts recommend that you can use to support the development of your child's social and emotional learning skills. Having said that, you know your child best. Please take the tips that you think you can use with your family and leave the rest. This is Module 5, Managing Conflict. Everyone in some capacity has been affected by the stay-at-home orders and the physical closure of schools. We are all spending more time with our immediate family, which is causing us to navigate and negotiate those relationships in new ways. Some of us are living with a profound sense of loss. Our children are similarly dealing with loss, change, and loneliness. All of this means we are going through some hard and challenging times that will inevitably make it harder to regulate our emotions at times. And so we will be irritated at each other. There are lots of ways conflict comes into your life with a young person. From wearing masks to wanting to go to school when it's a day to learn from home, conflict and managing it are factors in our lives. The good news is that there are steps we can take to help our children. So, when you want to talk with your child of a potentially charged topic, here are some suggestions to remember in preparation. First, good or bad, the situation you and your child are experiencing is a moment, not a lifetime. Second, young people, just like all of us, don't usually get it overnight. All of us learn over time, so it's helpful to manage your own expectations. Do not judge yourself or your child if the behavior shift takes time. Try to be patient. Third, you don't have to fix everything all the time. Young people usually confide in a trusted adult because they want to vent, not because they want the adult to fix the problem. And finally, learning how to manage conflict is one of the most complex but critical and ongoing social skills any of us can acquire. Have you ever shared a difficult experience with someone and they immediately started telling you all the things you should have done? Did you listen to them gratefully, or did you get frustrated because you didn't feel heard? The same thing happens with young people. Adults can easily fall into the trap of trying to fix the problem by giving a young person helpful advice or telling them how they would have done it. If a young person shares a problem with you, respond by asking if they are telling you because they want to vent or if they want advice. Feel free to tell them they can vent and then ask for help, but to let you know when it's advice giving time. How many of us are good at processing our feelings when we are in conflict with someone and then communicating those feelings effectively with the same person we're upset with? Many of us have underlying and understandable reasons why we hide our feelings of anger, anxiousness, vulnerability, or frustration, or we don't know how to share them in ways that effectively address the problem we are upset about. We have also learned to define success in a confrontation by either being in complete agreement with each other afterward or dominating the other person and winning the argument. In our current school status, when young people have conflict with others, they have less time and fewer opportunities than they have had in the past to talk to each other face to face to resolve their problems. It might also be tempting for young people to get frustrated with a teacher or a student, but not feel like it's worth saying anything about it. In the spring of 2020, we heard many students talk about experiencing these frustrations during online classes, and it was one of the primary reasons why they reported being less interested in school. Giving young people concrete strategies helps them feel more prepared and better able to advocate for themselves. If they feel they have more agency, distance learning will feel less like something to simply endure. Today we're going to cover 4 strategies: the family meeting, a strategy to help you have a challenging conversation with your young person, a strategy to help you guide a young person through a conflict with another person, and then an airing of grievance process. Strategy 1, the family meeting. Some conflict is normal in a family. When we're quarantined together around the clock for days on end, with everyone affected by a range of stressors, it's practically inevitable. Additionally, the way we talk to one another and about our conflicts can make them worse. When you have reached the moment when things run off the rails and you're not sure how to get back on track, it's time for a family meeting. Don't wait until you're so angry that you blow up. If you feel like you need to have a meeting, that's a sign that you should have one. But sometimes the same dynamics that can cause conflict can actually derail the meeting itself. You need a strategy. As an educator and founder of Cultures of Dignity, an organization that supports the emotional and physical well-being of young people and the people who care for them, Rosalind Wiseman developed the following suggestions with inputs from high school interns and members of a teen editorial board on how to hold an effective family meeting. This is a 6-step process, which we will discuss in the next few slides. In the description to this video, I will also link to Rosalind Wiseman's video where she goes into more detail on how to hold a family meeting. Step 1, get yourself ready. Look at a favorite picture or video of your child, one that makes you laugh, and think about the best of them. Hold on to that feeling. Aren't you lucky that this is the young person in your life? Be ready to remember this picture if things get heated. Now, find a quiet place and write your responses to the following questions. What are 3 things you want to accomplish in this meeting? Are your 3 goals realistic? How can you show that you're treating yourself and others with dignity throughout this process? Step 2, the invitation. Springing a family meeting on your kids will mostly likely result in eye rolling, sighing, and trying to hide from you. So give everyone plenty of notice. You'll still get the eye roll, but at least you're respecting that they may have online social plans. Here are the basics of what you want to communicate.
And what's our number?
Tomorrow, I'd like us to meet so we can briefly describe the problem you're having. Does the meeting at 7 p.m. at the kitchen table work for our schedules?
Thank you for that.
This doesn't work? Come up with a time that does work for everyone. Don't worry, it's not going to go on for hours. Also, please leave your phones in another room, and I'll do the same. Step 3, the meeting begins. Here's a suggested script that you can adapt as needed, depending on the ages and circumstances in your household. We're going through a really hard time together, and we're all going through it in our own ways. It's also natural that we're getting on each other's nerves. Maybe this seems weird or forced, but I felt like I needed to structure to have this discussion. We may disagree or have a difference of opinion, but I'm going to try my best to listen and take everything you say seriously. I hope that you'll do the same. I'm also going to do my best not to lecture, repeat myself, or judge you. Here's the process. We'll begin with a few principles to remember throughout the meeting. Then, we will take 5 minutes to write our answers to a few questions. When we're done, we'll come back and have each person will have approximately 3 minutes to share their responses. While they're talking, no one can interrupt them. Then the next person will go. After that, there will be time to ask questions. Then we'll check in to make sure everyone feels that they were listened to and we have a reasonable chance of making things better. The whole thing should take 45 minutes. Step 4, review the principles. These are the things to remember and help guide our behavior. First, listening is being prepared to be changed by what you hear. It doesn't mean waiting for someone to stop talking so we can tell them why they're wrong and we're right. Second, everyone has a right to a different opinion and feelings about the situation. No one has the right to say that another person's opinion or feelings are wrong. Third, no matter what happens here, we still have to live together. So it's in everyone's best interest to get to a better place. So check how you're showing up. No eye rolling, sighing, or insulting body language. And finally, each of us is probably going to have to change at least one thing about what we're doing to make the problem better. Hand out paper so members of the household can write down their responses to the following questions. If your child is too young to write, you can take a dictation. First, describe specifically what's frustrating you. Second, what do you want to happen instead? Third, is there anything that you're doing that's contributing to the problem? If yes, is there something that you're willing to do to change it? Fourth, why would these changes be hard to implement? Why would you think they wouldn't work? And finally, finish the sentence. This meeting will be worth doing if. After 5 minutes, come back together and have each person read their responses. You can encourage people to write questions or things they want to remember on their own paper as they listen to their family members. Step 5, the Q&A session. This is a really tricky part of the meeting. People need to ask questions to get clarification, but not come across as questioning the other person's intelligence, logic, or experiences. These sentence starters or stems can help a young person ask a curious question instead of a "why would you ever think X" question. Some sample questions. Can you tell me more about? Help me understand why. Both of these question stems need to be used with the tone of genuine curiosity. If the tone is sarcastic, it doesn't matter what you say. The person on the receiving end will get defensive and believe, for good reason, that you are taking their perspective seriously. Step 6, the summary. Finally, each person takes up to 1 minute to answer the following 2 questions. What is one thing you want everyone else to remember about what you said? What is one thing you heard from the other person that's important to remember? It's unrealistic to have the expectation that one meeting's going to solve the conflict. So have a short check-in the next day. What does success look like here? Maybe it didn't go perfectly, and that's okay. Success is breaking at least one of the patterns of unproductive discussions. Don't worry, you'll have more opportunities to practice. And once you learned it, whether you're cooped up at home or not, you can use this strategy not just with kids, but with spouses, roommates, or anytime you're angry, frustrated, or worried about other people. Strategy 2, having a challenging conversation with your young person. So when you're ready to have a conversation about a topic that may be challenging, keep these tips in mind. Of course, we know that challenging conversations begin with listening, but often as adults, we want to skip to solutions when most people just want a place to vent or feel heard. As we seek to help them find solutions to conflicts that may be occurring, here are some tips to keep in mind. Step 1, keep it short and don't repeat yourself. Have you ever shared a difficult experience with someone and they immediately started telling you all of the things that you should have done? Do you listen to them gratefully, or do you get frustrated because you don't feel listened to? It's the same thing with young people. Adults can easily fall into the trap of immediately trying to fix the problem by giving a young person helpful advice or telling them how they would have done it. So try to keep conversations short and avoid repeating yourself. Tip 2, keep it to 3. What are 3 things you want to get across no matter what happens in the conversation? Try to use those as a guide in your communication and help your child. Third, be strategic. Many times we try to talk with our children when they are escalated or may need time before we can even approach a challenging topic. Ask yourself, are you and your child in a place where they can listen to you and you can listen to them? Making sure you're in a good place and taking time can be helpful to finding solutions to conflicts. Strategy 3, guiding your young person through conflict. SEAL is a strategy that you may be able to use to help your child manage conflict. This strategy helps name the hard feelings we are experiencing, process those feelings, and then help us decide how and when to talk to the other person you're in conflict with. The SEAL strategy doesn't tell you what to say, it helps you think through how to say it. SEAL redefines what it means to be in a confrontation, and it can be used with anyone. You can even tell your child, if you get mad at me, you can always use the SEAL strategy to help you tell me why you're mad. SEAL stands for stop, explain, affirm and admit, and lock. Stop. Take a deep breath. Observe where you are. Decide what you need to do now to make the problem smaller. Explain. Take your bad feelings and put them into words. Be specific about what you don't like and what you need instead. Third, affirm and admit. Affirm means that both you and the person that you are angry with have the right to be treated with dignity. Admit if there is anything that you contributed to the problem and need to include in your SEAL. And L stands for lock. Lock in. You want to keep the relationship or the connection with another person. Lock, take a pause. You want to pause the relationship. Think of it as Velcro. It can stick and unstick. So if you separate, unstick, you can always stick back together later. Third is locked out. You feel that you aren't being treated with dignity, so you need to end the relationship. Let's talk about the locking out part because it can seem harsh or too final. We understand that when young people are in a friendship with a lot of conflict, it can feel like there's no way to stop being friends with the other person. A good question to ask is, when is it okay to decide not to be friends? What would it look like to not be friends but still treat them with dignity? We want young people to face these awkward moments and understand that friendships are stronger when people work through complicated feelings. We also want them to recognize the signs that they are in an unhealthy or unsafe friendship now, so it also sets a good foundation for other relationships when they get older. If employing a SEAL in a sibling conflict, the option to lock will look different. You can strategize within your household what locking could look like if someone needs space or time from the person they are in conflict with. Perhaps the siblings are allowed to go a few days without talking, or rules are established that they cannot invade the personal space of the other for a period of time, or that the bedroom or beds are private spaces. While this could present an added complication, during this new reality, it's very important to help young people advocate for their boundaries so they feel agency over their lives. There's also a complication to SEAL, or any time we teach a young person how to express their anger to another person. It's called the pushback. It's the other person's response that may upset you, distract you, or just irritate you so much that you get off track. It's important to ask about the pushbacks because it allows the young person to talk about the reasons why they're reluctant to tell someone they're angry and helps them be more prepared when a pushback happens to them in real life. Now you have a strategy to help you and the young person in your care. But there's a problem convincing and teaching young people to use SEAL or any conflict resolution strategy. It always feels awkward. Here are a few options to introduce SEAL. Option 1. Let me ask you a few questions so I can understand what you're going through. How is this situation making you physically feel? Like in your stomach or in your head? Put the feelings you're having into words or draw it. Just get it out. Option 2. Everyone's probably going to experience a conflict where they lose their words or think of what they wanted to say 5 minutes after the situation ends. SEAL is just a strategy to figure out how to speak what you want and what you're feeling in those situations. Option 3. When you first learned to play a video game or other activity, were you good at them the first time you played them? How did you get better? Practice. This also means that you expect mistakes and you will learn from those mistakes. You don't expect to be perfect the first time or even the first 10 times. The more you practice, the better you get. It's the same thing having conversations with people when you're uncomfortable or angry with them. The more practice you do, the better able you are to say what you want and be heard by the other person. Our last conflict strategy is facilitating an air of grievances. Inevitably, we will have conflicts within our families. The added stress, the lack of freedom, and the tight quarters makes for new challenges. We have heard from our students that many of them are closer to their siblings than they ever have been before, and they're also bickering a lot. As a parent, sibling disputes can be a huge stressor for you, and sometimes it's hard to know how serious the argument is. Again, here's where dignity can help you. If a young person is taking away the dignity of their sibling, and this is not acceptable, it's your responsibility to affirm the importance of dignity in your home. This means that while people can get angry with each other, they don't have to respect behavior that puts down others. Behavior that results in demeaning another's worth are not acceptable. A helpful strategy to calm family arguments is to allow each person 2 minutes to explain what is bothering them, why, and what they want to change. While they are speaking, the other person has to listen and not interrupt. After the first person finishes, the other person speaks and does the same thing for 2 minutes. Then there can be a round of curious and clarifying questions. We suggest that you remind the people what those are. Lastly, each person will have up to a minute to articulate what they heard from the other person and what they can commit to do to improving the situation. This strategy is best done when both parties are in a position to be able to listen. So you may not want to try this with you and your children or in the middle of an argument. It may be best to let them or you have some space prior to engaging the strategy and make sure everyone's phones are left in another room while this discussion is happening. To summarize Module 5, conflict is inevitable, and it's a normal, healthy aspect of managing relationships. SEAL is a strategy to help you manage yourself in a conflict so you are best set up to communicate your feelings, your boundaries, and affirm everyone's dignity. We will all have countless opportunities to practice SEAL, so don't stress about doing it perfectly. Any part that you do builds your skills and confidence. And finally, giving young people strategies to manage conflict means they may engage in more conflict because they feel empowered. While this can be challenging in the short term, learning to manage conflict is essential to long-term personal and professional success. Thank you for joining us today. Module 6, Friendships in COVID-19, is available now. Want to dive deeper? Register for our self-paced course. The link is on the screen. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you in Module 6.